y'all. Hey, we have a disclaimer. We're talking about steam canning. While it is not approved by the USDA, we suggest listeners do research and listen to this episode with an open mind and a loving heart. The important part of canning is that you do what is safe and what works for your family. Enjoy.
Hey, Monica, did you know it's now even easier to listen to Round the Hay Bale podcast?
What? Really? How easy?
That's right. All you have to do is say, Alexa, play Round the Hay Bale podcast.
Playing Round the Hay Bale podcast on Apple Music.
Ooh, we're really fancy now.
Tune in to Round the Hay Bale every Monday at 9 a.m. Central Time.
Grab a cup of joe and let's gather round that hay bale. With your hosts, Anne from Andale Homestead, Cayce from Ormsby Farms, Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch, and Sandi from Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona. Here they are. Hey, y'all, hey.
Hey, y'all. Hey, this is Anne from Andale Homestead.
This is Sandi from Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona.
I'm Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch.
Hello, everyone. It is Cayce over at Ormsby Farm. And yes, Anne, we are so excited to have everyone in today for another great topic of canning. Last week we talked about hands-free pressure canning, and this week we're staying on that same topic, but we're talking about water bath canning versus steam bath canning. Again, another one of those kind of like hot buttons that us rebel canners like to push for the canning police. But I think steam bath canning is one of those, me and Anne were talking about it off the episode, that is not too much, no, you shouldn't do it, like electric pressure canning. But I think this is going to be a great topic because this is another, for me, steam bath canning is another set it and forget it kind of thing. I'm a lazy canner, so I don't want to have to keep babysitting the canner the whole entire day or my whole life. So if I can put something in there, turn it on, turn it to steam, walk away, I'm a happy boy. I will tell you that. And what got you into steam bath canning?
Well, when I was water bath canning, it was a situation where I had to have help. I mean, you have a big pot I don't have a pot filler over my stove. So I would either have to use pitchers of water to fill the pan the whole time, or I would have to have help when I filled it in the sink and put it on the stove. And it was just such a pain. And I found a real Fruit Saver steam canner. That thing has like 2 inches of water in the bottom. Don't waste all your water. Does the exact same thing as water bath canning. And that's what made me enjoy the steam bath versus the water bath. It's easy, and you can do 1 jar at a time if you want to. You don't have to do a whole bunch of jars. And so, Sandi, you've done some water bath canning.
I have. That's what I don't have a steam bath. I've done water bath, anything that is a high acid. I've done jams, jellies, pickles, tomatoes, things like that. And I did find that, though there's a lot of people that say the USDA does not approve steam canners, but the USDA does approve certain steam canners now. So that's something that is really going to change the face of canning a lot of things, like if you're canning your peaches or your pears, things like that. And so that I think it gives people a little more security when the USDA approves things. And so I'm happy about that.
Yes, me too. And so what I have particularly is a Fruit Saver steam canner. It looks like, it's got maybe 2 or 3 inch bottom, and it's pretty large. It's as large as my largest canner or stock pot on the bottom. But it comes with a rack, and then you fill the water up just to the bottom of the rack. You don't fill it above the rack. And the lid is a larger empty that's where the steam gathers is in that lid. And it has a little vent hole in the back of the lid where as your water is boiling, and then you're not going to blow the lid off of your pot. It has an air vent to it. In other words, I use the same time frame as any of the Ball books or the USDA books or anything like that. It's the exact same timing as water bath canning, and it's very convenient.
The only thing they will not approve is you cannot steam bath over 45 minutes.
Right.
But most things that you're going to steam bath are not going to be over 45 minutes. But it's just something to remember. If your recipe says that it has to be over 45 minutes, you cannot steam bath.
Yeah, not in a steam canner. And the reason for that is because you only have 2 inches of water. And if you've got it up to temperature, there's a gauge on top of the lid that has a needle that has colors, and you find your elevation of where you want that little red needle in on your gauge. And if you have it there the whole time, you've got a pretty steady boil. And anything more than 45 minutes, any of us do in our pans. If you've got 2 inches of water and you boil it for 45 minutes, probably going to be empty. And so I believe that's where the safety comes from. So Cayce, you water bath in something else.
I do. And anybody that knows me know I'm a little bit of a rebel, just a teeny tiny bit of a rebel. But this is not even necessarily rebellish, but I like to steam bath can in my Instapot. The Instapot is my friend. It's a very, very dear friend of mine that I use probably multiple times a day, but I do it the same way. There's the rack that you put your jars in. You fill in the water probably 2-3 inches down to the bottom, and you're going to seal that Instapot like you're about to turn it on. Okay, so you're going to seal that Instapot, but I vent. Instead of keeping it sealed, if you're pressure cooking something, like you're pressure cooking a chicken or some soup or some broth, you're going to seal it. You're going to vent it instead. So once that venting, for me, that I've learned from, I've read vlogs and I've watched YouTube videos on it and I've done it. You're going to have the steam that goes constantly, kind of like a pressure canner. It's that steam is coming out full force. Okay. Once you see that, that's when you're going to start your timer. You never seal it. You never let the pressure build up inside of that Instapot. But it's just a simple way for me to put in some jams if I'm making a small batch of jams, because it's 10 minutes for jelly. I mean, again, it's the same times as water bath canning. And I love water bath canning. Don't get me wrong. I love to water bath can. I just am like y'all, even me as a dude, to carry that big old giant water bath canner full of water over to the stove. And I have a glass top stove, which I'm sure it's not very grateful that I put this big old 40-pound bowl of water on it. And then you got all your jars too. So this is why it makes it simpler for me to just have something that is electric, that is on my countertop, that I can put small amount of things in there. If I'm doing a small batch of salsa, I put salsa in the steam bath. And again, I will use the lemon juice or citric acid, because that's one of the big things that I will not be rebellious on, as I do put in the lemon juice and citric acid to bring the acidity up so that you can safely can that tomato product. So I wanted to say that before any canning police came in our comments. But it's simple, because I know that Monica had called me a couple days ago and was like, I know you steam bath can in your Instapot. Walk me through it like I'm a 3-year-old child and tell me word for word. And it literally is that easy. 2 inches of water at the very bottom, put your jars, seal the Instapot top like you're about to cook it, but don't seal the valve. Press the time. So you'll press pressure cook for, let's say, jams, 10 minutes. Then that, you don't even look at that after that. You're going to wait for the steam to go flow like it's 1999 partying. And that is when you're going to start your time, your 10 minutes. And the pressure cooker will never come up to pressure, so it will never really work properly on the screen. So that's why I say don't even worry about that after you put the time. I only put the time in so it can bring the heat up and the steam and all that kind of stuff. Was that kind of explanatory? Is that a word? Making up words on the podcast, Monica.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, so basically, what I'm understanding though is the only real benefit of using steam bath versus water bath is the amount of water that you have to deal with, correct? That's basically it. So they do the same thing. Yeah. Ultimately, your goal is to seal your jars. But the only thing that's different is that you don't have to use as much water. And if I'm steam bath canning, I could possibly, in a rebellious way, use my Instant Pot because I'm not pressure canning or anything like that. But I could use, so I can kind of use any pot. But can I use any pot to water bath too? Like, can I use any pot that I want to water bath my jars of jams and jellies and preserves?
You can use any pot to water bath. You cannot use any pot to steam bath, though.
Okay. So there's a big difference. So
that's
water bath canning, I only need how much? I need 1 inch above my jars.
Yeah, 1 or 2. Just depends on the size of the pot that you have. Okay. And then you can just, you know, you're putting it in. It's already at the boil point of water when you lower those jars into it on a rack. Mm-hmm. And then you do you put your lid on it and you do your timer.
But it's got to be boiling. So I think the reason why I don't use a standard water bath canner right now is because I feel like my temperature cannot keep a steady rolling boil for 10 minutes. And I don't like it. So in the past, before I got my electric pressure canner, when I've water bath canned, because I have water bath canned my jalapeno jellies, my cowboy candies and things like that. When I've done that in the past, before I had my electric countertop canner, I was water bath canning on my stovetop, and I felt like it was not staying at a consistent rolling boil. I feel like my burner would kind of like keep it at rolling boil for like 5 or 6 minutes, and then it would slow itself down, maybe because it was overheating or whatever. And then I would kind of see the boil go down, and then it would start up again. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So because I felt very unsure of a lot of that, I would keep it in there for an extra 5 minutes or so. And I was like, yeah, it looks like it's good. And then I'd pull everything out and just pray for the pings because I just wanted to make sure. But inside, some of my food would get soggy, and I would notice my cowboy candy would be a little softer in some batches than others because it wasn't consistently boiling. And so that's why I really don't use my stovetop for any of my canning right now because it's not consistently. So water bath canning, you want a consistent 10 minutes of rolling boil, for instance.
Correct.
When I'm dealing with my jams or jellies or things like that. And so if you can't get that consistent rolling boil, you want to find maybe an alternative. Am I correct?
I think that, and I think that is the struggle for any stove is keeping, if you're using the big giant old school water bath. What is that? I don't want to say enamel. What is the blue with the white spots? Sandy probably knows what I'm talking
it's enamel.
about. You know, it's enamel. Okay. It is hard to keep all that water hot and even to get it hot. So it's a lot of electricity that you're putting out or gas, propane to heat that water up. This is just, I believe, again, I love water bath canning, that the steam bath is a easier alternative to be for sure that the steam and the boiling is happening so the jars can seal. Let's be for real. When you put your hot jam liquid in your jars and you put your top on, your 4-jar lids, your rings, some people just let it sit like that and it's going to ping. It's going to ping. So you can even in an Instapot, I have water bath canned in the Instapot. Now you can't put as many jars in the Instapot as you can a regular water bath canner. But if you get that water in your Instapot, there is a soup setting. Get that water boiling. Put your jars in there on the rack. Make sure there's an inch of headspace above the the lid, if you're going to water bath can, and let it sit in there, regular steady boil for 10 minutes. And I'm just like, it's easier for me so I can do 9 billion other things in my kitchen. That's one of the big reasons that I like the electric pressure canner, the Instapot for steam bath canning, because I can be making bread, I can be pressure canning, I could be water bath or steam bath canning all at the same time, and not have to have 9 arms, if that makes sense. So that's why I like it.
I think that Monica did a good point, is that you have to know your stove.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a glass top, your manufacturer will not approve if it cracks because you've canned on it. You should know that. The other thing about a glass top, when we went to look at stoves, the salesman told me that the glass top heats to a temperature, it shuts off, and then it'll heat again. And so that can be a problem with canning, because you want, especially water bath, you need that constant boil. Like when I lower those jars in, it is boiling, and it is boiling the entire time that I have it, so that I know that, yes, it's safe. It's done exactly what it was supposed to do. The jars come out, they cool, they ping, and I don't ever have to worry about it. It's just like I do it and I get to forget until I want to use that jar.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Now, that is one thing that the Fruit Saver actual steam canner has, is a gauge on the top of the lid. And that will show you what the temperature, if you're getting too high, you can turn it down, or if it's too low, you can turn it up. Because I have a glass top stove, because this steam canner is so light, I am able to use my glass top stove with this. I do have to be careful that it's not totally blocking any airflow or anything, that kind of stuff. But, for 10 minutes, we're doing okay. Anything longer. I did do some tomato ketchup and some tomato soup in the steam canner just this past week. And they were both 40 minutes, which is right at the edge. You could go for 45 minutes. And so I was a little more watchful on that. I didn't go outside and pull weeds and do the yard work. I was still in the house while that was going on. So,
okay. So you with the steam bath canner that you have, okay, that's specifically for steam bath canning.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of have to babysit that more, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So because it does have like a little thermometer, it has a little temperature gauge. So you've got to kind of watch those things. But with Cayce, so for instance, my sister and I, she has a glass top stove. I have a mini stove. So either one of us are really interested in trying to water bath or steam can on our stovetops. We need an electric alternative. We need some sort of alternative that's going to be easy for us. She also has small children. I have children that are needing me most of the time. And so with having a busy schedule, what Cayce's recommending, I have several Instant Pots. I know she has her own. We can do this in an Instant Pot. We could do steam bath canning, or we could do water bath canning in the Instant Pot. We just need to be aware of how to do it, watching for the amount of water we fill, making sure we've got that constant steam coming out of the valve, right? Because that'll indicate that we're at a constant rolling boil, those type of things. But it's maybe less of a monitoring thing because we're not maybe worried about the glass top stove or worried about the pressure fluctuating, because when you've got that electric can or the electric Instant Pot, that's going to keep it at a pretty steady pressure or pretty steady temperature, right? I mean, feasibly, that's what it should do. So I'm thinking that might be the best alternative for us currently in the situations we're in, because it's going to make it easier for us to actually preserve the things that we want to preserve. We just received a massive harvest of pears from a lady that wasn't going to eat her pears. We went and we, as a family, we have so many pears right now and they're waiting to be used. And we're going to put them up. And my sister's like, I don't even know what to do with these. And I'm like, we're going to find some ways to just can them. We're just going to can them up. We're going to either make jams or jellies or preserve, whatever we're going to do. We're going to do something with them. And we're even going to just stick them in some water and just pack them like that. We're going to do what we can, but we need to figure out exactly what recipes we can use for this type of canning that we need to use, because I feel like we're kind of stuck on this particular method of canning at this point. So now my recipes have to fit this method of canning as well. And that's something I needed to make sure I thought about before we started canning.
Well, I think with pears anyways, I think pears is one of those, as we say, low acid or high acid food. Fruit can be water bath canned.
Okay, so they can be water bath canned pretty much across the board.
And I again, hi, I'm Cayce. I'm a lazy canner. I like the peels of my vegetables and fruits. And most of the time I keep the peels on. Not all the time, but most of the time. And then I literally put water in it, can it, and pears are in the pantry. Yeah. It's easy. It's quick. You cut it up, you fill it up with water. You can steam bath, water bath, however you want to do it. That's like the lazy person way of putting it away. Jams, you got a little more effort going into it.
Yeah. So I think this is what we're thinking about doing, because we have a lot. So I think we're going to have several different instant pot stations around I have my pressure canner, so I can use that for sure, my electric pressure canner, but I also have my instant pots, which are electric pressure cookers. She has hers. And so I think we're going to put them in different areas of the kitchen and start using them for stations where we have several canning areas going. So we may do steam bath in one, and maybe we'll do water bath in another, just to try different methods so that she can learn. But I have never done steam bath, so I'm a little nervous about making sure I have the right amount of water. Because when you say 2 to 3 inches of water, that doesn't mean a lot to me. Okay?
I put in the Instapot. Like I put 2 quarts.
So you pour 2 quarts, and
it's got a line on it, right? In the Instapot, doesn't it have a line where?
It does.
I've got like a 6 quart Instapot. I don't know what she's got. Maybe I have an 8 quart or a 9 quart, and I also have a 6 quarts. I guess it depends on what you're using. But standard wise, do I want to put it up against the bottom of the jar an inch or so? I mean, like,
I do, just so I don't run out of, because there has been times where I have put something into steam bath can in the Instapot, and the Instapot goes, error, stupid, you didn't put enough water in, and it will completely shut off. So even if I have just a little bit more water than I probably should need, you're still going to steam. It's still going to seal. You just won't run out of the water.
And you're going to put the rack in the bottom of your Instant Pot. So it's
always,
Pot,
yes.
And then the rack. And then now, is there a way that you can steam bath can or water bath can without a rack? Like, say maybe my rack got lost somewhere in one of my cabinets because my kids like to mess with my stuff.
I mean, I know some people have used like towels at the bottom of it. Some people have been rebellious and put it still on the bottom. That's, again, what we talk about on making sure that you do it what is safe for you and your family, what you feel comfortable doing. Because me, again, I'm a rebel. I would say, yeah, girl, go for it. Put a rag down and I'll be good. But I probably should think it over.
Sandy, have you ever canned without a rack?
I have canned without a rack, but I have used a towel. I think it needs to be up off of the bottom.
Okay.
You know, because sometimes you're using unusual shapes of jars that you're canning. And so I've used like great big stock pots to can. Okay. Well, if I don't have a rack that fits that pot, then I'm for sure going to put towels in there, because I think it needs a little bit of space between that and the bottom of the pan so that it heats evenly.
Okay. Because it does rattle. So, I mean, you could hear them like they're moving because there's moving water. So that would make sense. I mean, I may have made homemade caramel in my crock pot a few years ago and put a dish towel down and did it that way. And it works great, but I didn't know if that's because that was a little bit slower of movement and that was a little different. So I didn't know if it was very similar to water bathing and if I could water bath with just a dish towel. Now, I wouldn't want to steam bath with a dish towel, right?
I don't see logically why it would make a difference.
Okay, because I'm still putting water in it. I'm covering the bottom of that jar a certain amount.
Right. Right. And, our friend Blue over in England, they don't have racks in their pots. They always use towels,
Okay.
And so that's just, because they don't buy water bath canners like us and pressure canners. They just can't find them. So
Okay.
they use the regular pots that they have at home.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not that they're necessarily rebellious. It's just that they're using what they have, and there's no real rebellion there because the government doesn't say it's illegal.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, because I just want to make sure. I feel like because I'm new at this part of it, I don't want to mess it up, right? I mean, I've been just gifted this beautiful bounty of pears and stuff, and I don't want to screw it up. I mean, look, if I mess it up and a few of them don't ping, fine, we eat them right away. But I would just hate to put, I have 4 different canning things going and then have none of them seal properly because I'm doing it wrong. That's a lot of jars to eat, even for my large family. My sister's small family could not consume that amount. So I just want to make sure I'm doing it correctly so that in the end, we know what we're getting ourselves into. And then when we finish, do y'all take your rings off? Like after everything is said and done, do you take your rings off or loosen them enough for storage that if for some reason things didn't go okay in the next 2 days or 3 days or whatever, it would pop?
As soon as they're cool, I take the rings off.
Okay.
I never take my rings off.
Do you leave them just like they were when you put them in?
Well, the whole process of canning will loosen them up. When it seals and it sucks parts of that air out, it seals it and it loosens that band. And I know lots of people say that you should always take it off. I have never found the necessity of that unless I need that ring for another can another jar that I need. So otherwise I don't do it. I don't think it's right or wrong or what,
Okay.
I'll say I tighten up because I have noticed when you buy off-brand jars like I do on Amazon, that the rings and the lids don't always fit as snug on them when I buy, because I get 4-jar lids and rings, and then I'll get the off-brand jars because they're a lot cheaper. And right when I pull them out, I'll tighten them a little bit because that helps it seal, in my opinion.
Really? Okay.
And I do like to leave sometimes the rings. I know this is crazy. The rings on for only like my fruit, and I'll leave it on for like a week, and then I'll test. And the only reason I take it off is like Sandi said, because I have to use it for another jar. But most of the time I do take the rings off. I'm not rebellious enough to where I stack. I don't stack.
Me either.
But I mean, I think, Monica, don't overthink it. We talk about all the time in our podcast about homesteading and don't overthink it. Are you planning on, raw packing or hot packing? Do you know what your goal is? Like, if y'all listeners could see Monica's face, that probably be.
We're gonna make an assembly line of children, and we're having child labor. Okay, they're gonna be helping.
Okay, so raw packing
right here. We have a lot. I don't think you understand the amount of a lot for me. Okay, not a lot of things are a lot for me. I got a lot of pears. Okay.
So
there's pear relish.
I was about to say my recommendation is raw pack, and I love to raw pack. Because it's simple, it's quick. I'm snapping over here. It's probably gonna be all over my sound.
Well, my sister wants to be able to do it without adding sugar too, because her and her husband have really tried to cut the sugar out of their system. Artificial, like added sugars, right? She doesn't want to add sweetener to it. So I'm like, pears are sweet. And she's like, yeah, but I don't want to add sweetener to it. Her husband has basically cut out sugar, and he wants to be able to enjoy pears every now and then, or some fruit that we've, been given or grown ourselves. And she's like, I need to figure out how to kind of make some things with low sugar or no sugar. And so that's what she wanted to do. So if we can raw pack it,
basically the difference between raw packing and hot packing is hot packing, you're boiling liquid and you're heating up the thing that you are putting in there. I do raw pack, and I'll peel my pears because I get a bunch of pears. Monica knows because she's been to the homestead. My trees produce a ton. I peel my pears first, only because I like to use the peels and the cores to make pear scrap vinegar, for vinegars for the following spring salad dressings. But then I cut the meat off of the pear. I put it right in that jar, and I put in, and this is where the rebellion happens, but I put in as hot as water as my tap will go, and I fill up those jars. And they are cleaned. They're cleaned and sanitized jars. So let me start with that.
Yeah.
But
Any kind of lemon juice or anything like that?
Nope. I don't put
Okay.
any of that. I mean, the different stuff for like fruit, you could do fruit and water, or the light syrup, or the medium syrup, or the heavy syrup. All the syrups are going to have the added sugar. And, it sounds like your sister and brother-in-law don't want any of that. So water is going to be the easiest way to do it. And you'll still have the sugar from the pear. It's simple. You put your slices in there, or your rounds, or you dice it. You fill it with water. I like to do an inch of headspace. I know that all the canning books for fruits and jellies will say 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch, which the bottom of where the ring top is about an inch headspace. I fill it up to there. I've always had success sealing. I'm still alive, so I haven't died of any mold or anything in my jars over the past 3 years, but that's the simple thing. And you can do it with the kids. You have one kid that's washing the jars or taking the jar out, stuffing the pears in. The next one's filling it up with water. The other one's putting a lid on. You can turn it into assembly line because raw packing is literally that easy. I know Sandi probably can back me up on that, on the difference between raw and hot packing. Sandi, what do you normally do with yours? Are you more of a raw packer or a hot packer?
For my fruit, it's usually like pears, it's a raw pack. It just depends on what I'm doing. Like if I'm making apple pie filling, I heat it up.
Sure.
But if I'm just having just a plain fruit, I usually like a light syrup in there.
Mhm.
I just think it adds a little bit to the flavor. But I think it's what your family likes. What you really want to do is what they're going to eat later on. If you have these things that you're trying and you've made 12 or 24 jars, and then it's like they tried it that one time and it's like they don't really like it.
Yeah.
So, but with Monica, with your pears, you could make juices from it. You can make butters. You can make chutneys. You can make jams. You can make jellies, relishes. Or just the whole fruit. Half the fruit, quarter the fruit. There's just so many things you could do with all of those pears to utilize them so that you can use them the whole winter long.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to try to do is do a bunch of different recipes so that we can have an abundance. And that way, if her people don't like one of them, we can swap out jars and I can say, okay, my people like this. Here, you can take these instead. Because I think between the two families, we really want to share in this opportunity that we were given to basically clean out a tree full of pears. I mean, it was an amazing opportunity. So, okay, I'm going to be looking up a bunch of recipes basically in the next 24 hours so I can be prepared with 4 Instant Pots and 7 children, and we will assembly line these children. So I say child labor very lovingly, just so you all know.
Well, everybody, we just so appreciate you coming in and visiting with us. We hope that you check out Round the Hay Bale, all of our episodes. When we get to be 500 subscribers, we are doing giveaways. I mean, good stuff. Giveaways. And so we're excited that you're here. Don't forget, on Fridays, we have our radio show, Hey Y'all Hey, and we will be talking about this episode so that you can really come in, ask questions, and we just really appreciate you. So I'm going to say goodbye. We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Are you enjoying the Hay Bale topics? To learn more, click on the LinkTree link to get all our product recommendations along with discount codes and more.